Okay, this is a meeting of the Hyde Park School Board of Education, October 11th, 2018. Can I have a motion to enter into executive session to discuss confidential matters pertaining to the employment, discipline, and confidential employment matter?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? We are now in executive session.
And
Okay, this is a meeting of the Hyde Park
the
Central
lawyer sat.
School District Board of Education. Can I have everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The crazy little Buzzy just besides on commercials. This thing out of here.
Okay, there was one agenda modification that has been changed. 11.4 has been pulled. That would be the terms and conditions for Elliot Sheldon. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Don't we have to come out of exec session first?
Not anymore.
Okay. I learned
Sorry,
something.
that was Doug and him.
Dan. Okay. Upcoming events. Okay, there will be no school on October 22nd. There will be Superintendent's Conference Day. The next Board of Ed meeting will be on October 25th, 7 p.m. at the district office. And next we'll go to 6.1 Pride.
Jeff, there's also, you might have to recycle. Wednesday, October 17th, there's a presentation by Ray McNulty, national speaker and renowned author. Yeah.
Yeah, we're really excited about that. It's, we have an event next Wednesday evening. It's open to all parents and educators. Ray McNulty will be coming to speak about future-focused education. This is co-hosted by Red Hook Central School Districts and the Hyde Park Central School Districts. And we're excited to bring Ray here. He talks about education in a VUCA world. How do you prepare for preparing our students to a world that's volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous? And he really talks about some of the shifts that we need to look at in teaching and learning. And so he's a very engaging presenter, and all are welcome. 6:30 FDR next Wednesday. Thank you. And this is part of our district leadership team initiative to share the why behind our strategic plan. Why are we focusing on the 4 C's? So should be very engaging.
Okay, now we'll move on to Pride.
Oh, yeah. There's not much this week, but we had our homecoming at FDR, and that was really fun. All the students wore white because it was a white out, like how we had planned. And for our pep rally, a lot of teachers, and especially Mr. Party, he came up to me and Ms. Curcio, who runs all of SGO, and said that it was one of the best pep rallies at FDR because the students were still respectful and still had lots of fun, and like we all came together, and yeah, so it was very fun. There was a lot of participation at the dance and the game, and the dance at FDR is usually not the biggest thing, but each year it's building more and more, so it's better, so yeah.
Great. We have with us tonight John Penna from the Town of Poughkeepsie Historical Society, and we, of quite a while ago, John contacted me, come on up to the podium, about designating Violet Avenue School. It is on the National Historic Register, but now it is also recognized by the town of Poughkeepsie. And I know, John, that you did a lot of work on this, so we would like to thank you. John and I were talking that originally this meeting was planned to be at Violet Avenue.
Some saying that. He had some suggestions about how this building should be put up. It was also built under the PWA, which was the predecessor of the WPA. And it's a really beautiful building and has a long history, not only architecturally, but of course the history of its educational programs and all the wonderful things it's done for children over the years. I'm also a former educator. I worked in the schools for 35 years and retired, and I still work in Marist College as an educator. So I know it's done a lot of wonderful things for children and for the community. So we are very pleased to have the support of the Hyde Park School Board and willingness to have us recognize the school, and Dr. Rychek with her support and making this happen. And so we'd like to present this plaque which says, this property is recognized by the Town of Poughkeepsie Historic Preservation Commission and the Register of the Historic Places. So we'd like to present this to the school board, and we will look forward to having it on the wall somewhere in the school in a future date. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Aviva, do you want to talk about Greg Tang? Greg Tang Jr.
Yes. So Greg Tang is a national math speaker and author. He's visited Hyde Park in the past, and his son, Greg Tang Jr., now works with him in his company. And he came last year to Violet Avenue and to Ralph R. Smith, and this year to Netherwood and North Park. I got to see the kindergarten lesson at Netherwood yesterday and the first grade lesson at North Park today. They're really engaging math games the kids love, and really teaching them some of the skills they need to learn. Really engaging. It was wonderful. And then there was professional development for teachers directly after school in each building, and then family math game nights, which were really well attended in both buildings. So there was one for Netherwood last night, and the one that ended earlier this evening for parents. So it was really wonderful. We have trained all teachers in the past by Greg Tang, and then we have, just a handful of new elementary teachers, and we're having them trained as well. So it's very, very nicely aligned with the math curriculum that we have from the state, and really engaging. So it was great.
The participation in Netherwood was quite good. Last night I did attend. And it's, for me, the interesting part is seeing moms and daughters playing math games where you don't normally, not this year. I remember last year a math teacher at the high school playing a game with her daughter who didn't like math, even though mom was a math teacher, and they connected over this game. It was really interesting to see. So it's, I'm glad. I hope we continue to have them.
Mm-hmm.
I'd just like to say thanks again for having Greg Tang Jr. I don't know, who did I see last year?
Junior.
Well, Junior is like 25 years old, so
Was it Greg Tang Jr. that I saw last year, too?
Yeah.
And stuff, and I really enjoyed it when I went I'd heard a lot of buzz and stuff, so I just want to thank you, because I think it's a really good service that we're giving to our students in our community.
And we did use federal grant funds for the program.
Cool.
Okay, I have a few more. There's been a lot happening. A couple of years ago, we recognized Debbie St. Ange for her volunteer work in the district, and I received a publication from Duchess Outreach, and she got the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award for her work with Duchess Outreach, and specifically the lunchbox. And Debbie was instrumental in making this a field trip for our students, so it was nice to see her being recognized by Dutchess Outreach. So another special shout out. I will send her an email and just congratulate her on that. Brian Halling, math teacher at the high school, we were just notified this week or early last week, October 9th, this week, that he was selected as a New York State master teacher. And just as a reminder, this is a comprehensive, rigorous program that they go through to receive this designation. They have to demonstrate a deep understanding of their content area, pedagogy, and students' families and communities, as well as a commitment to growth. Master teachers are dedicated to sharing best practices to provide the most innovative STEM education for all students, mentor current and pre-service teachers, and even more importantly, inspire their students who are the next generation of STEM teachers. So congratulations to Brian Halling on reaching the status of master teacher. Congratulations to the Hyde Park Teachers Association. They had their links for FORE literacy golf outing, and they raised $1,800 apiece for the 3 local libraries, Statsburg, Clinton, and Hyde Park. So it was a great fundraising effort to contribute back to our local libraries and promote literacy. It was interesting. I wish Mike Zagorski was here. Hopefully he'll watch the tape. We recently had a conversation about National Merit Scholars, and we have 3 students at the high school who are recipients of the National Merit Scholars. I can't even remember the last time we had 3 at once, if ever. I don't know. We'd have to go back deep into the archives. These 3 students represent the top 3% of the 1.6 million students who took the PSATs. So the shout out goes to the 3 seniors, Tito Maresca, Jason Mattel, and Layla Rains. So congratulations. You'll be hearing more about that, and we'll be seeing some features on that. That is an extraordinary accomplishment, and certainly extraordinary to have 3 in one senior class. I can't even imagine what the competition is like right now up there. Yeah. Healthy competition, right? Yeah. Okay. And happy birthday to Eleanor Roosevelt. It's her birthday today. Oh.
If I could just add one late-breaking news. I just got a while ago an email from my wife informing me that the girls' soccer team won today, which qualified them for sectionals. And this is the first time in an extended period of time that the team has achieved that level of success. So congratulations to the girls' soccer team.
Excellent. Look for when the sectionals are.
Does anyone else have anything else for Brad?
Yeah.
Nope. Superintendent's report?
Yeah, just a couple of things. Later on in the agenda is in the consent agenda, instead of stopping then, the Hyde Park Rotary each year donates dictionaries to all of our 3rd grade students. And this year is no exception. They get their own personal dictionary. I do know personally that the Rotary revisits it from time to time. Is a dictionary, instead of an electronic, is it still a valid text to give to students? And actually, based on the feedback from the students themselves who write cards to the Rotary, it is still a very worthwhile endeavor. So the Rotary raises money. They purchase dictionaries for children to keep for life, and they were happy to continue, and the approximate value of the donation is about $705. So thank you to the Hyde Park Rotary for continuing this tradition. Patsy Costello from the Town of Hyde Park Historical Society sent me the announcement that the Little Red Schoolhouse, which is on the North Park property, will be having an open house at 2 o'clock on October 21st. That's a Sunday. All are invited. I actually went with them once for one of the open houses. It's really sweet if you haven't done it. They take you through the one-room experience. They've done some renovations recently. Again, that's right on the North Park property. And last, two other things. More and more, we're seeing some really great collaborations with IBM, and a special shout out to Kim Neisel, our Director of Math and Science, who really helps to operationalize some of these experiences. But we were invited to an event, and it's this Saturday, and it's called Master the Mainframe, Legends of Z. And so we were able to, through Kim's help and the high school, we were able to make sure that we have a group of interested students, I think through some of the Project Lead the Way students and some of our other computer students in the programming class. We have a group of students who will be going on Saturday to this, I don't know if it's a competition, but it's certainly going to be an opportunity for them to get their hands on the mainframe and the Legends of Z. So we're really excited. They're coming up with more and more engaging and catchy opportunities for students to participate in. So thank you, everyone, and I look forward to seeing and hearing about the experience this Saturday. And last but not least, I know this was a lot, but a lot happened. We were recently informed, and this is where I'm going to need you, Rick, Wirt, that the video, under Aviva's leadership, the group of administrators who were attending a separate strand, a leadership strand of Ed Leader 21, that's the organization we are a member of to help us further our journey in our strategic plan and looking at the 4 Cs. Part of their assignment in a year-long academy was to put together a video. And they really came up with the whole concept, the layout, everything, and we utilized the services of our BOCES communication department to come and actually do the filming and the editing. And we were informed that our video won an Award of Merit at the 39th Annual New York State Public Relations Association under the category of Communications Award. And I've been going to PTA meetings this fall. I'm down 3, got 3 more to go, and I am showing this video, so it's nice to not only see it, but to also acknowledge that it did win an Award of Merit. So I'd like to play it tonight, just because it was an opportune time to highlight it.
For years now, educators across the nation have been zeroing in on 21st century skills. Learning is being redefined. In the Hyde Park Central School District, we began our work with the 4 Cs with a focus on critical thinking. Although we already have programs and practices in place to encourage and support critical thinking, such as the One-to-One Initiative and AVID, the DLT chose to focus on helping administrators. Having our administrators master the critical thinking rubrics and materials ensures we have a unified vision and support for our teachers. It's clear and gratifying that we are now moving even beyond our initial goal.
Hyde Park Central School District speaks of the profile of a graduate, and the profile of a graduate encompasses all students that are culturally, linguistically, and or socioeconomically diverse. And what it means is that we've made a commitment to the world that when students graduate from this district, that we guarantee that they will be critical thinkers based on the foundations that we've set, and it all begins on an elementary level.
In this Montessori kindergarten class, the youngest learners are able to pick learning tasks that appeal to them and challenge them to think logically.
it is changing things dramatically because it's changing the way they think, and not just them learning facts in a particular content area, but they're learning how to think and how to question and how to analyze.
The way I think about it, I gather evidence in my head about something and then think which one's more stronger to me.
At the elementary level, educators are capitalizing on the natural curiosity of their young students and are opening their minds to questioning, encouraging them to investigate, and to look at the world with a critical eye. While the 4Cs initiative is now taking off, the district has many long-established opportunities to enhance critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. A major support for critical thinking is the district's investment in technology.
I don't want the technology to own them. I want them to own the technology and use it to help them be better thinkers.
I think it's our responsibility to start that work now. It's not easy work, but we've identified it as something that's important to us, and it is our initiative going out into the future.
At the high school level, critical thinking approaches are being implemented in all subject areas, including the arts.
Nobody gets a job in algebra. There's no such thing. So you are definitely applying the skills that you learn in my classroom. I believe that. I believe that what I'm teaching is important, but you have to be able to apply your problem-solving skills to the real world.
Today we're doing an activity called Philosophical Chairs, and I start them off with an open-ended Socratic seminar question about a quote that I give them, and then I give them a prompt, and they use that question to stimulate their thinking on their position on the topic.
The ability to think critically is going to give you all the problem-solving skills that you need. And the way that the world is changing, the way that jobs are changing, it's going to be tackling problems that we don't even have yet, we don't know yet.
We've got a lot of outstanding teachers, and those teachers have been incorporating critical thinking throughout their lessons and throughout how they teach students. The difference, I think, now is we have a rubric, we have a concerted mindset throughout the entire district as a result of the DLT that kind of focuses our efforts.
I see a lot that makes me proud. I think we've made really good choices in terms of district curriculum, what we use from the state or what we use that's really, considered best practice in the field. And then with that, there's a lot of creativity and freedom for teachers. I really believe that teachers are the decision makers in the classroom and that they're professionals. So there should be enough space in there for people to do things that they're really passionate about, because I think that's when kids get really excited.
Our district's duty is to make certain students who graduate from the Hyde Park Central School District will leave with the skills and the content knowledge needed to succeed on whichever path they choose for their future. We are 100% committed to making that happen.
If you think hard, you get stronger and you get smarter.
The bottom line is that at every level, Hyde Park educators are working to ensure that all our students graduate ready to communicate, collaborate, think critically, and be creative.
Had to end on a dominant chord.
Thank you.
That was really good.
Very good.
We showed it on opening day this year, too.
Good job. Show it often.
Yeah, right, we've got it right on our homepage. We're just trying to get the word out that it's there, yeah. Sorry,
I would even suggest that perhaps we could have that as an endless stream when you have open houses and things like that. I think having that going on like in the lobby would be valuable.
Great. We have all the monitors.
Maybe even broadcast it, if you have a situation where you've got, an open house where people are out in classrooms.
Yeah.
Take the 4 minutes to play it, and I think it's a good message.
Yeah, great suggestions. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go on to 7.2, audit report from Marvin and Company.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Yeah, so Chris Haley is here. Chris is, I think his title is Assurance Manager, is that correct? Yeah. He is really our lead auditor, and he's here to present on the external audit findings. The external audit is the audit of our financial statements. And Marvin and Company provides an opinion on those statements.
Thanks, Linda. So I'm not going to ask you to flip through those big packets. I decided to try something a little bit differently this year. I believe you have a little one-page summary that was provided to you electronically. And I'm just going to kind of go through the higher level details since we did have a more in-depth meeting with the audit committee. So if you were to go into that packet, the page numbers that I'm going to reference are where you would find the pieces of information that I'm going to talk about. So the most important pages are pages 1 and 2. That's our audit report. That's really the only section of that report that's ours, are the pages that are on our letterhead. Everything else is the district's responsibility. That's all the information that's coming from the business office. So in our opinion, the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. So that's a clean opinion, unmodified. We had no issues there, so that's what you strive for. So that's certainly a good thing. The next section is we call the A section. That's management's discussion and analysis. So that's a great spot to go if you wanted a summary. It's a little bit more reader-friendly. It gives you kind of a little bit more background of what's been going on in the district, what might be coming up in the future. So there's about 10 pages there of condensed the more important things there in a summary format. So if you look at nothing else, that's a great spot to go look and just get an idea of where the district stands. Pages B1 and page B2, these are the district's financial statements on the full accrual basis. So this is what you would use to compare yourself to a nonprofit or a for-profit company. It's a full accrual, so all your long-term assets and liabilities are included. As you know, your general fund and your capital fund, your funds don't report anything long-term. So this is your full accrual. Things just to point out there, the net position of the district this year is in a deficit of $142 million. That is not uncommon on the full accrual set of financial statements. The biggest driver of that is your other post-employment benefit obligation, which is your retiree health insurance. There was a new standard this year, GASB 75, which was required to be implemented, and basically what that did is it brought the entire liability onto the face of your financial statements. So I won't bore you with the details, but in the past, only a piece of that liability showed up actually on the statements, and then there was a schedule in the back that had the full amount. That number is just now brought forward and included in your financial statements. Most districts that we've seen are in a deficit net position because of this liability now. And the reason that it causes that deficit is because you're not allowed to fund it. There's no legal authority for you to set aside any money towards it. You're still paying it as you go through your general fund. So that's important to note. That new standard was a $133 million change, so that's really the biggest change year over year between the 2 years. The other important thing to point out on those statements, you are required to report your share of the ERS and TRS retirement asset or liability. TRS last year and ERS were both liabilities. This year, TRS has flipped over to an asset again based on the discount rate that the actuaries at the state level have used. So you have an asset again for TRS and a liability for ERS. Pages B3 and B4, these are your fund statements. So this is probably more what you're used to seeing in a column for each fund going down through. Important things here, your general fund, you're required to maintain your unassigned fund balance less than 4% of next year's budget. You're at 3.84%, so you're under that, which is certainly good. And your revenues exceeded your expenditures in the general fund by $2.2 million. I'll touch on that again in a minute, but that's certainly a good thing to have. B7 to B43, those are the footnotes. If you wanted any more information on any of the numbers, that's where you go to find it. There's a lot of good information in there. Your reserves and fund balances are on page B15 to B17, so if you're curious how much money you have set aside in your reserves, that's where you would go for that. B36 and 37, that's your long-term debt, your bonds, your payment schedule. So if you were curious where the district stands on that, that's a good spot to go. And B40 to B43 is about 3 pages of new footnotes in there for the new standard for the other post-employment benefits. So a lot of information in there related to the discount rate used by the actuary, what would happen if that changed, plus or minus 1%, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of information in there, but that might be useful for you guys in future decision making. Page C1 and C2, this is your budget to actual schedules for the general fund. So as I mentioned, your revenues exceeded your expenditures in the general fund, which is good. Your revenues were $188,000 over budget, which is a good thing. That's 0.2% of your budget, so that's right on, so that's a good sign. Your expenses were under budget by $3.6 million, which is about 4% of the budget, so that's certainly not vastly out of line. The areas that came in under budget are consistent with almost every other district that we see. It's mostly in your special education, employee benefits, those items that are difficult to pin down a budget number when it could really sway vastly from year to year. Page E1 and E2, so this is another report from us. This is a required report on internal control and compliance. We have no findings to report through that. F1 and F2 is our report on internal control and compliance for your major programs. So this is your single audit, your federal awards. This year we tested Title I and your impact aid that comes through as the major programs. We had a clean opinion on those. We did have one finding related to the federal payroll certifications. So for teachers or employees coded to federal grants, they're required to acknowledge that they're being paid for under a federal grant. We found a couple of those, I think it was one person, maybe a couple of those certifications that weren't completed timely, which we discussed with the audit committee. Overall, not a significant finding, but because of the compliance component to that, we're required to report that. You did receive about $3.1 million in federal awards and expend that, so that's certainly good information to have. And then F5 is a good summary of the entire audit. It lets you know all the different opinions we had, if there were any findings, so that's a great one-page summary there. We also audited your extra classroom activity fund. We issued an unmodified opinion on that as well, which is a clean opinion. That set of financial statements is on the cash basis of accounting, so that's a little bit different. It's taking into account when the cash is coming in the door, when it's going out the door, not so much taking into account any other facts and circumstances. We did issue a management letter related to those funds. Again, certainly not uncommon. We went through those findings with the audit committee, and you have a copy of that report for you to look through. But again, nothing in there is uncommon for what we see at other districts. Anytime you have student involvement, there's going to be a few things in there, but certainly we'll point those out for you to have that information and hopefully make some changes. Other than that, that's all I have. I want to thank Linda and Barb and everybody that helps us out. You know, we come in here for a week and a couple of days before that and ask for a lot of information, so we appreciate their help and support and making sure that everything's ready for us, and it was, and so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll have public participation. Can I have a motion to open public participation?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, is anybody would like to address the board? Seeing no one wishing to address the board, I will now close public participation. We'll move on to 9.1. Board subcommittee reports? Does anyone have any committee reports?
The special ed and subcommittee met, and we had a welcoming sort of introduction from Heather this year about the special ed situation. And we also had Jen Kryzami come in to talk about the English Language Learner Program. She did point out a surprise to us, at least, and I guess it was a surprise to her, that we had an influx of 11 students at the high school level and near the end of the summer or beginning of the school year, which has caused them to scramble a little to align things up, but they're in pretty good shape according to her statements right now. But this again reflects the changing nature of what's going on in terms of the fact that most of those students are students that came from a program called Students with Interrupted Education. These are students that have had their education interrupted for an extended period of time, and they've finally, in most cases, gotten out of circumstances that were very dangerous to their safety and welfare. And they're here, but they've, as a result of that, they've had no formal education for an extended period of time. We can be talking about 12-year-old students that really can't read or write yet, and some high school students that are a couple of years away from graduation that can't read or write English, and more complicated for us is the fact that they come from countries where they have a symbolic language, Chinese scripts or other things like that, so they don't even know an alphabet. So we're forced to go back to square one in terms of teaching them what is an alphabet, how do you use the English alphabet, how do you form sounds and words. So it's going to be an interesting period of time for them, and a lot of this information is being developed now because it's a new situation that's occurred in this country in the last couple of years.
Jeff, the audit committee met with the external auditors and went through these documents in more detail. And just for later on, we recommend that the audit committee recommends that we accept this document.
We have a choice.
And the SAVE committee met, and as we know, we all did our go home early drill. One of the things they kept pushing is say, we're one of the few districts that actually sends our buses to the alternate pickup spots. But what we hear, there's a lot of districts, how are you able to do that? But with the cooperation of the local police departments, that we're one of the few districts that actually go to the alternate pickup place. The kids know where to go. So it's a point of pride for the district that we actually can do this.
Good.
And I can add that the Dutchess County School Board Association had a meeting last week in which we had a presentation from the Lower Hudson Education Coalition, which I'm actually just trying to look up to make sure I understand. Ooh, that didn't work. It's a coalition made up of Dutchess County School Board Association. I think it's the superintendents.
The Lower Hudson Council.
Lower Hudson Council.
Mm-hmm.
And
School
then I think is it Northern Westchester School Board Association as well?
It could be, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're really the bigger, I think they're the bigger entity of it. But are we a member? Is
We
Hyde
have
part?
previously, we might not be this year.
Okay, all right.
It's a legislative action type group.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it is advocacy, and they've had a change where they used to have a staff person who was an advocate. She retired, went on to something else. I think actually she retired, and they made a decision to go with a firm, which is a lobbyist, if you will. I think they're registered lobbyists, and they were there at the meeting as well as one member of the board. And I was impressed. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. If we haven't paid our dues to stay involved, I think we should pay our dues. I think it's an organization worth supporting. And I think where public education is under attack as much as it is these days, I think that we need to have these coalitions to work together toward common efforts. So And I would just say, other than that, we're just back in the swing of having meetings. We didn't have a September meeting because of the opening of schools, so we're back, and all are welcome. Do you get emails? Does everybody get emails, notifications? If you've got nothing better going on the first Thursday of every month, it's it's enlightening. And we had a good turnout. I would say probably one of the biggest gatherings of superintendents. Occasionally we see business officials, board members, so a good rounded crew. And, some new faces because there have been elections and some new people appointed as being their liaison, so good efforts.
Any more board reports?
Should make the text a little smaller.
Okay, next we'll go to 9.2, NISBA delegate information. At this point, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Denise, where she's going to talk about the delegate, and I believe she is looking for some feedback on the resolutions that will be voted on.
Yeah, I just thought I'd start with, I don't think a lot of people understand what NISBA is. And NISBA is the New York State School Board Association. It's a statewide voice for the interests of public boards of education. I'm just reading their definition right here. It serves nearly 660 local school boards and BOCES, and represent about 5,000 members, which is nearly half of the elected officials in the state. We use NISBA mostly, they help us with training and advice on matters, with policy, and what else have we learned from them? So much. We learn from them. They help us
We do
to
some
learn
of
how
their
to be-
advocacy work, they help us with advocacy.
Yeah. And they train us as board members so that we know our roles and how to do them and things. So one of the things that I'm doing is I'm going to the annual meeting. I think it's in 2 weeks. And you all voted me as a delegate, and at the risk of making the meeting really long, which I know you all love it when I do.
We can shorten it. I recommend that we vote yes on all the...
Well, we absolutely can do that. I think it's important. I would just direct everybody out there, though, to go to our board doc site and to read the 18
there were
resolutions that we're going to be voting on. And what this does is it gives NISBA, if passed, we've given them then permission to work on our behalf, to work with State Ed and New York State to try to address certain issues that we all have.
I was hoping everybody had already read them.
Well, I was more talking to our community. So, because I think it's important for you all to know what we're working on as a board. So, does anybody have any discussion? Would anybody have any questions?
Has everyone reviewed the 18 propositions in there?
Yeah, I have, and I'm okay with all of them.
I had just a couple of, on number 3.
Number 3.
It basically looks like the resolution is to discuss the resolution further.
Yeah, that's
really.
I did have a problem with number 3 also.
Pretty ambiguous that.
I think it is. I mean, their board is looking for this. What happens with these is that different school districts throughout the state propose these resolutions to NISBA. Their board then reviews them and decides which ones they're going to put up for vote at the annual meeting and which ones they aren't going to put up for vote at the annual meeting. So, I mean, there is more definition. Did you go and look at the description on the accompanying thing? I can look it up right now.
Right.
Yeah. It really didn't say anything definitive.
Okay.
And I don't know, I guess I just questioned why even bother with it if, basically table the discussion and formalize a resolution in the future, something you can vote on.
Does everybody feel that way?
Actually, I feel like that.
Okay,
on that one.
Is that how you would like, I'm looking for a consensus, because this isn't my voice, this is our voice.
I mean, I guess my recommendation would be to, table the resolution until you come up with something solid that has some substance.
So let me write that down. Number 3. This paper here.
But I am in agreement with the rest of them, though.
I don't know, I didn't think it was that bad.
That was 2 of us. So what does everybody else feel about number 3?
I support them. Table to table.
You support to table it. Okay. Perry? Doug?
I didn't have a problem with it myself, but
I'm refreshing myself as I go through it here.
that's what I'm going back to,
Yeah, please take
find
your
out
time.
why.
Well, while there, one more question.
Yes, please.
17 regarding the hiring of the law enforcement officers, that right now I guess they're limited to $30,000 a year. I mean, are they having a problem hiring people? Is that why they want to raise the limit?
They didn't say that in the rationale. I think it was just supporting that they could be hired for more hours. I don't know the answer to that.
Just, just a question.
Does anybody else have a question about number 17? Or any indication that you don't want me to vote in support of that? Any other questions? Are we still talking about number 3?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't see the harm in it myself, but table's fine.
Number 3.
Well, I guess the question is, if we don't, I mean, I'm looking at this, it looks like they're resolving to continue
And expand.
to gather more information, to further discuss.
Right.
So I guess what happens if it doesn't pass? If they don't pass this resolution, does it die? Do they stop talking about it?
NISBA?
I don't know.
I would think it could be reintroduced. It's, I guess we support legislation to improve school safety by reducing access to guns. What does that mean? Wait for, is there a specific piece of legislation that they want to back and support and get people to vote for it? Or do they want to generate something specific? Because later on, there are a couple of resolutions to having the schools pay for, making the schools safer and exempting it from the tax cap, and then also asking for federal funds for the same purpose. So I guess I probably shouldn't get political, but I think it's just, I think a resolution has more teeth if there's something specific that rather than just kind of a generic concept.
Even if you look at it, it barely came out of the resolution committee, 6-5.
Yeah.
Right.
You could tell they had a problem with it.
I don't have a strong feeling with the way that if I can support tabling, not supporting it. I mean, that's really what you're talking about here, is
Yes.
you're either supporting it or you're not supporting it.
I'm going to vote one way or another.
I would say if they don't table it, I don't see how you can oppose something like that even.
Well, I guess
in
that's my
principles.
point, is
But I would rather see something that's got a little more teeth in it, you know what I mean?
But
Maybe that'll come up during the discussion.
Yeah, I think our position at this point is, do we either support it or we don't support it? If we don't support it, in essence, are we saying, don't pursue it? And I don't know that that's what we're saying, I don't think that's what we're saying. I think what we're saying is that this is just too vague to be, this is just simply making a resolution to say that we're going to continue to work on it.
The resolution is to support legislation to improve school safety. It's not talking about some discussion, it's talking about legislation to improve school safety that currently does not include the types of guns like 3D printed guns. They're not even considered in current, that's what I get from this, but.
Is it that general? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, well, but look at the last line. Determination was made to recommend it with the expectation that it will require further discussion.
In the meeting, yes, that's fine. However, it's supporting legislation to improve school safety. I can't see how you can vote against that.
I guess I read it to give, I read it this way. Do we give NYSBA our support to support any legislation to improve school safety by reducing access to guns?
Right.
That's how I interpret this. Do we give NYSBA our support to support legislation to improve school safety by reducing access to guns? That's...
Yeah.
I can live with supporting that. I guess I was just looking for something.
That's how I read it.
You want it to be more concrete than what it is.
I was trying to find out, where you're going with it.
And the point is, there's no legislation, there's no particular legislation that it's pointing to that says, we support, this bill. I mean, that's much easier to get behind, because at that point, it's rock solid and it's about a foot thick.
But then at the same time, are we saying when they come up with a bill that we support it, but we don't even know what bill they're supporting?
Yeah.
That would be my only concern.
Well, I guess, yes, we're giving...
This was a chance to say whatever bill they come up with, we support.
Well, whatever bill
that improves,
reduces,
that improves
supports legislation to
school safety.
improve
Yes,
school safety by reducing access to guns.
Which again is a very
And my point would be, yes, I am in favor of supporting any legislation that improves school safety by reducing access to guns.
Yeah.
Is the assumption then, if you reduce access to guns, you're improving school safety?
No, that is
Well,
not...
this is saying you're improving school safety by reducing access to guns.
But the implication is, the way I would read that says that any legislation that reduces access to guns is going to improve school safety.
No, I'm saying that I support legislation that reduces access to guns that improves school safety.
Suppose it came out and said that the SROs no longer can carry weapons in the school area.
I would question whether that improves school safety.
Right.
But you've already said if the school board, if the organization believes it's right, you support it.
Well, we can cast another vote, and we can put forth our own resolution next year at NYSBA.
I would question how they would get to that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're
and the other side of it is this is just
giving somebody...
I don't want to say it's fodder, but I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
This is just letting them move forward with a platform. And I think we agree with the concept. I think that maybe it's not worth getting too hung up on it, because the other side of it is that, it all moves slow. We can have this same discussion next year, and hopefully there's more definition. That's what it comes down to.
Basically, by looking at the vote on the committee, they are going to have another robust discussion going forward. So
it could be interesting as to what the delegates. I mean, I know that there can be discussion at the conference, and it could get pulled. It's certainly possible it could get pulled or amended. So don't mess it up.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
We're all behind you, Denise.
I'll certainly...
At least 10 feet.
Well, I'll see what I can do in this room full of...
I'd be interesting to hear what the discussion was when you get back.
I will let you know.
If you can videotape it, we'd love to.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Bring a big battery.
Does anybody, can we move on to any other? Does anybody have any other questions or comments about any of the other resolutions that are proposed?
Just a question on the one about the kindergarten. Is that pushing towards
mandatory
demanding that everybody agrees that kindergarten is a great thing, but it doesn't mention half day or full day. And we still have districts out there that financially are in a position where they can't afford it and they're not getting enough help to do it.
I was under the impression...
Well, I know a little something about it, just because our representative at Office of Early Learning is retiring, and she came and did a visit to our UPKs, and I just met with her, and she mentioned this, and she said, according to her records, there's only 3 districts that aren't offering kindergarten in the state. I mean, they still have to have children come when they're 6 years old, which we imagine the mess of that. I don't know if they start in the middle of the year or what they do, or they just call it first grade and have all those kids in it. But that's the status. So they're looking to push that a little further, that at this point it wasn't about full day, that they realized the cost of that. It's about making sure everyone has something called kindergarten as a next step, and that they would work with those remaining districts to make sure that that works. So that's at least what the Office of Early Learning had to say about that question.
So whatever resolutions they come up with would probably support more state aid for that particular program to be...
That's what she was.
Come forward with
That's
money.
what she was saying. They want to support those few districts that still don't have a kindergarten program at the least.
States come forward with money over the years to encourage people to do it, but it's always been with the little price tag beyond it. You know, here's money to get started, but next year you're on your own.
Well, I think that's a good time to talk about number 1, which was
unfunded mandate.
Are we moving ahead?
Right,
Let's
that
go
we
back 3 steps.
that we would encourage NYSBA to oppose any legislative and regulatory mandates that would impose new unfunded or underfunded mandates on the school district.
This is always there, isn't it? Every year we say the same thing.
I know, well, we want them to support that. I mean, I think that's what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, in a broader sense.
So back to the kindergarten thing, does that then, if it becomes mandatory, puts a burden on the district for truancy?
It doesn't really cost money we follow up on attendance with kindergarten even though it's not mandatory.
Okay.
Already.
So we're already spending the money.
I don't know how much money it costs, but yeah, we're concerned and we reach out to the families and try to help them. So we realize it's not mandatory, but it's not like we're sending officers out to the house in every other grade level.
Any other questions, comments?
Nope.
Go forth and conquer.
I will.
Oh, there goes your water. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, everybody.
When I open them, they
Audience
explode on me.
participation.
Thank you. So thank you, and I'll let you know how it goes.
All right, bring pictures.
Okay.
Okay, on to our another fun topic. 9.3, the board goals for 2018-2019. Okay, do we have them up on the screen? So in the first part, academics. Receive semi-annual updates on progress of integrating New York State learning standards into instructional practices. 2, receive update on status coherency planning initiative as they occur. Review of recent changes to the number of days of testing required by the state. Review all steps the state has made to address parents' concerns with the intent to increase participation by the Hyde Park Central School District students and potential penalties for low participation. And 5, receive a report from the building administration on the elements that contribute to and maintaining or increasing the 4-year cohort graduation rate as expressed by the New York State School Report Card, and update us on the rate as compared to the 17-18 school year. I would like to add another point in this goals. I would like to receive a report of what standardized testing is being done in each school. Besides the regular state attendance, what other tests are we requiring our students to take? Any thoughts?
Wasn't there just something in the paper about they're changing all the standardized testing again next year? I thought I read that just a couple of days ago.
Last spring, so 2018 spring was new, and so when that became public, they made it clear that we're not to compare that to the 2017. So it's a new baseline. So it might be that.
I thought there was something
even
changing again in the 1920 school year. It was just recently in the paper the last few.
There
will be a change.
Part of what is up for grabs again is utilizing the state test scores in the teacher evaluation system. That is on schedule to happen in the 1920 school year, so that would be new. Also, they're going to have to continue to update some of the tests based on the revision of the curriculum for the next generation standards. So there's a whole timeline for when the next generation standards are finalized, and then the tests have to be updated to match the new standards. So, yeah, there's certainly a lot on the horizon there.
It's a work in progress.
But is that tendency in 2020 is to, for this current year, we have the option of selecting, do we not, some form of testing to be part of the APPR? And now that option in the 2020 is going to be the state thing and nothing else?
It's sort of sunsetting, like Greer was talking about, like this would be the last year that there's a moratorium, though that may be extended. There's been no final decision on whether those state tests will be used for teacher evaluation going forward or not.
Well, I guess it's semantics. You're right, and it could be extended. There's no language anywhere now or proposal that it will be.
Right.
So technically, the moratorium expires this year.
So next year, there must be something in the APPR that specifies or is related directly to student testing?
Yes.
But it's not specifically the state?
Oh, no, it's specifically the state tests.
It would go back to the growth scores.
Right.
Unless something else happens.
Just so people know, we get the growth scores.
We give them to teachers, we report them back, even though they give them to us, we have to give them back to them.
Right.
And we hand them to teachers, but they're not used for evaluation.
Right, so all teachers and principals have been receiving their scores. We just weren't using them, so when the moratorium is lifted, we will have to use the scores in part of the evaluation. Now, if somebody, as what term did you use, somebody extends it again?
Right, I just read something like that today, that there's talk of that already.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Oh, there's been, yeah.
No, I mean from the commissioner, yeah.
Oh, okay, good. I didn't read that today. It's up to the minute
just
information.
Talking about it, right.
So any comments on my added to receive a report?
I have some questions about it. So you're talking about, you said standardized testing, so we have the standardized testing that's required from New York State, right? We have the ELA and the math, right? And that's what you're talking about. But we also have, other kinds of standardized testing, like those are our assessments that we give.
The F&P, yes.
F and P. And then the regions and the Common Core are also standardized tests. I mean, are you looking at
Can't use that word Common Core.
You can't use that anymore? See how I'm out of it already? So what does that mean? Because we still use regions then?
Yes.
So what are we?
And those are required. So some of these, and I know you'll talk about your goals, but some of these really could be put into some existing presentations and reports, certainly the list of assessments that we use. Doesn't have to be separate.
It'd be nice to get a report just to see what all standardized testing that our students are getting.
That are students, and what grades.
Yeah, that would be easy to do without a separate report. That could be put into an existing one, either one of these, or I do an assessment report next month anyway.
And when you were talking about growth scores, what do you mean by those? Are those from year to year?
That's the 3 through 8.
ELA and the math?
It's ELA and math, state testing, and there's a computation that happens at the state level where students are compared to similar students who tested similarly the previous year across the state. So they put all that together and they say, here's how much, your students should have grown this much, and this is how much we think they did, and then you get a score.
Okay.
What opportunity do schools or teaching groups or anybody have to discuss their manipulation or utilization of the data to come up with to say, hey, this is reasonable to say if you had this score, you should get to that score by next year.
Yeah.
You're progressing one grade level and.
I think that gets to one of the other suggested goals, to talk about what the state has done regarding the testing, because, there's a lot of information about, when they have an open comment period, when they go around the state and ask opinions, and certainly there's a lot of lobbying from different groups about it.
And if you read all of the information that shows up in the papers every now and then about it, you could spend an entire 2 weeks. And when you're all done, you'll be twice as confused as when you started reading. And that's part of why I have it up there, that somebody might be able to explain it to me in a manner that I can understand. It's got me very confused.
So I'll be fine if we get a report from either your building administration or when you do your composite.
Okay, so we can talk about.
I'll be fine with that.
And it would be consistent, so it probably makes more sense for me to include that rather than hear the same
But
thing
I would like a complete list of what we're doing.
Yep.
Only have a question is on number 5. It says, receive a report from the building administration. Are we saying that we expect all our building administrators at each level to give us how they're doing? Or are we limiting this to the middle school, high school?
No, I thought this is what we get. Isn't this the report we get from our principals when we go?
So we are going to expect our elementary principals to give us on how what they're doing to help us raise the 4-year cohort that could be 6 years away?
We've never done that.
I was just thinking we need to.
High school, right?
Yeah.
I thought this was for the high school.
Yeah, so we should just limit it to the high school.
So do we want to, so it's the.
Yes,
High
the
school
high school
building
administration, yeah. Sorry, I'm a little stickler for the wording there. Okay, board administration operations. Well, number 1, conduct a board retreat on diversity and equity with the all admin group. Number 2, board of members will attend at least one professional development training, whether webinar or other training. This year, I think we need to add this year.
What are you doing?
Or this school year.
Yeah. We have a comprehensive list of things that are available for us to meet that requirement.
Well, if you go to the NISPA page, there is a ton of webinars to take.
And I'm sorry.
You guys?
There's none that are going to be rejected if I do it, or?
Well, not to mention that your retreat is one.
Well, yeah. Yeah, but I
think the intent is beyond one in.
I think any of the webinars are good. Ellie or Perry, you go to all kinds. You're part of your job.
I got you covered.
Yeah.
Now you got to do one extra.
Yeah.
Well,
he gets to include one of those.
He went to the Dutchess School Board presentation.
Right.
Okay, budget and administration. Support a budget that maintains as many programs as possible given the tax cap. Verify that any spending reductions are distributed with equity. Number 3, ensure spending is based on actual projected spending, not rollover numbers.
You still there, Doug?
Yep, okay. Community, each board member will attend one community event as their schedule permits.
Did it last night.
Okay, facilities.
Is this not a community event?
Sorry.
Is this meeting not a community?
This is a responsibility.
Aren't they all?
Facilities. Number 1, receive a presentation from the energy educator. Okay, I can't split you guys up, okay? I can. Okay, number 1, receive a presentation from the energy educator that will include year-to-year comparisons of use and costs, include any reference to capital projects that have an enhanced energy use and how they correlate to energy consumption/savings. Number 2, receive an F&O journal entry once per month, giving a snapshot of what projects are being done or need to be done, what the plan is to maintain the equipment we have or are getting through capital projects. Number 3, receive a presentation by March that details the recurring maintenance requirements, including how are these items reflected in the budget, what is the replacement schedule for minor items, polishers, mowers, etc. How are items like doors, locks serviced? How often do we just wait for things to break? State of the district facilities with a snapshot of facilities issues of greatest concern. Number 4, receive a review of capital bond update to heating controls at FDR. Was there a reduction in work orders for inconsistent classroom temperatures? Was there a quantifiable change in fuel consumption per degree days at FDR? Policy, keep up with the list of incoming policies from NISBA, review policies that require annual review, review policies that have not been updated in 5 or more years. And on to technology.
Wait a minute.
What?
I'd like to talk a little bit about some of this facility stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this doesn't read like a goal
This
at all.
is not, I don't know who wrote this, it's a bad thing, but it's not what I thought we were discussing. It's,
I plead guilty.
I mean.
This was supposed to be, I thought we were going to discuss this, tell you the truth.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
let's have a discussion.
Yes.
So, yeah, it doesn't read like a goal. I mean, so the goal is that we're going to get a report. The goal is we're going to make somebody else do something. The question is, what are we going to do with it? So when we learn how items like door locks are serviced, what do we do with that?
Okay, my thoughts on this whole process were
Okay.
that, from a comment you made,
Yep.
that maintenance just gets done, and I would like to know, boilers, are they serviced every year? Are they vacuumed out every year, like I do with my home thing? What recurring maintenance thing do we do, and how are they funded? Are they in the budget as per, a line that says, we need so much money for boiler maintenance, we need so much money for maintenance of equipment, the grounds equipment? Like, what happens? Do we just look at a mower and say, I don't think it's going to make it through another year, so we're going to put something in? Do we have scheduled maintenance for that mower, for example? I'm just would like to know if, are there certain things that should be done every year that maybe aren't being done because the budget doesn't reflect that? That's why I added all the little things.
I'm sorry, my interpretation of this is that you want this to be a presentation that's given to us this year, but not necessarily a presentation that's given to us on a regular basis, like, or even beyond this year. You just would like to be told this kind of once so we can have that discussion with our facilities guy?
I've been told in the past, and if you go back years ago, even before I was on the board, our buildings are in this shape because we didn't do what we were supposed to do. I want to know, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? That's all. I don't know how to put that in, that's why I put all that stuff in there.
If I may, is Elliot still in the room? Okay, so we actually have two structures, actually multiple structures. So I think that as a goal, to receive a presentation that details recurrent maintenance requirements is really good. So you want to know, how do we budget and plan for things that are recurring? Yeah. That's a goal, to get a report on that. The other thing is, and I honestly can't remember off the top of my head when our 5-year BCS is due, but it's soon. Our building condition survey is every 5 years.
2020 will be the next building conditions.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in the building condition, so another appropriate update on facilities would be to maybe get another status report on our building condition survey, and what have we done, and what do we anticipate will be rolled over into the next building condition survey. And the building condition surveys, we rate on a needs to be done now, needs to be, so I think I hear, if I can, two separate things. One is you'd like a better understanding of how we determine recurring maintenance. That's fair enough, so we can put something together on that. A lot of, since years ago, when it was in disarray, there are a number of tools that we've started to use, a number of things that we've instituted. If you remember from prior years, we've put together things like a vehicle replacement cycle. Certainly, we looked last year at some inventory maintenance when we still have to share with you that one audit that we had, and we found that, instead of stocking things like a paintbrush, we're sending a guy out to buy one paintbrush, and we have to remember to get that report to them. So if that's helpful, I do think that getting a better understanding of how we handle recurring maintenance, and possibly an update of our building condition survey as it stands now, so it's not a surprise in 2020 where we are.
Yeah. So I think that the update on the building condition survey, I think, is real appropriate. I think we should look at that, and it'll be an eye-opener. Look at what we've done since it was done in 2015, and more importantly, what wasn't done, and it's going to show up with all of those things that said they should be done in year 5 through 10, which are now going to show up that should be done in year 1 through 5 in 2020, with all the things that were supposed to be done in year 1 through 5 in 2015 that didn't get done. I think that's valuable. So I appreciate your interest in what the facilities department does, and I think it would be good. I think it's a good exercise, and maybe I take it for granted a bit more. But again, how locks are serviced, I think that maybe that opens the door for us to have a better understanding of how the facilities department operates. And I think I might be a little more general in what you're looking for, and not try to be so specific, but ask for preventative maintenance.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think that we want to look at, do we have an effective preventative maintenance program? How is it administered? Do we have a replacement policy for assets? And you know what? That mower, it may be that just every year you look at it and say, is it going to go another year or not? Because they're not. I mean, that's.
Right. So what, did you put a block of money in your F&O budget in case the mower breaks, or
Yeah.
Well,
is there?
I think.
Is there just and how big is it? And well, I'd like to know how big it is, and what
Right. And as much
is it
as you'd
all
like to
used?
do zero-based budgeting,
Yeah.
when you're talking about the square footage of space that we have, and the age of the space that we have, and the amount of equipment that we have, it's not realistic. You are going to have blocks of money in the budget that are for maintenance purposes, and it's a prioritizing every day. You're, go ahead.
I've been dying just to say something.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Thank you. So the facilities department does meet with the building principals every year, too. It's something that Elliot Garcia did, and now Elliot Sheldon is getting ready to go out and do that, like, I don't know if it's annual or it might even be semi-annual. Yeah, Elliot's saying yes, semi-annual. So they get a feel for what the principals have noticed or issues that they've noticed in the building, and they also include the custodians in that too. So we do have that plan. I hate the name of it. It's the DRIP plan.
DRIP,
yeah, District Renovations and Improvement Plan.
Yeah.
Mhm. So that might be something.
So it would be great to
look
build a
at,
budget if you could tell me everything that's going to go wrong in the building for the next year.
No, I understand that. I understand that. I'm just saying that I would like to know how that process works. I think the community would like to know how that process works. Are we maintaining? I think it's all good stuff that.
I agree. I think it's a presentation, but I would provide more latitude.
Okay. Oh no.
Okay.
This was just like off the top of my head.
So,
Yeah.
Elliot, how would you reword those?
Doug, you've got attention.
I would look.
Sorry, I keep doing Elliot. Sorry, never mind. Elliot's on my head.
Elliot?
Behind him, too.
That's on the other side.
Sorry, Barry.
Being new to the mix, at budget time, does each department head submit their own budget?
Yes.
Like transportation, facilities, and
Yes.
that? Shouldn't that kind of stuff be included in that budget being done by the department head?
Yes, and it is.
So
I don't
basically,
recall how much of a,
It's
do we
not
get much
that
of, we don't get much of a presentation.
Not
We haven't shown the detail on
Detail.
it, but
And again, I don't want anybody to kid themselves. There isn't as much detail as you want there to be. Because you don't know what's going to go wrong in 12 months.
I understand, but do you want, so in this current year, will they analyze the amount of money that was spent in certain areas for maintenance and repair?
Yeah,
And use that as a projection, saying,
Right.
we're not getting any bigger, but we got something getting
Right,
older,
right.
weight them?
Right, which is what we're saying we're not doing. Which is what we're saying we're not going to do from a budget standpoint. We're saying that we want to do budgeting from we don't use the term
Yeah,
zero
but
base,
we
but
can-
it's not
we can-
rollover.
we can pretty much know that we are going to spend a certain amount, whether we don't might not, for
You don't know what
facilities,
you're gonna spend
we don't
it
know
on.
exactly what it is, but we do know.
But you know
we're
you're going to spend it.
right.
Okay, that wasn't my intent. My intent, I understand, you have a budget, I have a budget at home.
Yep.
You know, my intent is to make sure that certain, do we ever have a situation where some recurring maintenance is not done because something else came up, we used all the money? I mean,
Do we have deferred maintenance? Yes. I don't even have to ask the question.
Okay.
I know that we are not funding all the maintenance that we need to do in this district. Neither is any other school district in New York State.
And why is that?
Because there's no money. I mean,
But it would be nice to know that, know what areas we're not doing.
I think, Doug, are you looking to see what systems we have in place to monitor that, or?
Is there a plan?
Is there?
It's a culture. To
Yeah.
me, it's very much a culture of having things like the meetings with principals, the meetings with department heads, using the building condition survey, having the DRIP plans. To me, those are all the elements that someone is looking at those and knows what's on those. Having the preventative maintenance plan, knowing whether we're up to date on preventative maintenance. Those are the kinds of things. So that's why I say, give them more latitude. What I would look for is the department to provide a presentation, a comprehensive presentation that provides an overview of the operation of the department and the expenditures, planning and expenditures of the department. And I think that's...
Well, and I would like to know if deferred maintenance is a routine thing, then I would like as a board member, would like to know.
That's actually
what are we not doing, and it's like, you don't, your car's sounding a little tough, but you keep running and running, and then all of a sudden, piston runs through the thing, but you could have prevented that cost if you had done something in the first place. So if you defer maintenance...
Go to number 2. Can you roll back? Because that's where I would look for that to be shown, because I don't want to wait and see it once a year in March. This is where receive an F&O journal entry once per month giving a snapshot of what projects are being done or need to be done and what the plan is to maintain the equipment and we have or are getting
I think there's
through capital projects.
I think that's sort of kind of end of that thing we need to...
What I was looking for, and I think that was the one that I was shooting for, is that I'd like to see a monthly report, and it doesn't have to be long, could be a front and back of a page, and let the facilities department tell us what are the highlights of what's going on in their department. What projects do they have? Where do they see the downfalls? Where are their problems? Where are their headaches? What things should we be aware of? Are we having roof leaks on a building that they're spending time patching? That means to me, we've got a project. We're going to need to be thinking about a project.
Okay, how about you two will work the wording out and come back to the next meeting with the wording on it?
I'm happy with just getting rid of all the bullets there, except for the last one, and get details of recurring maintenance. I mean, I would like to know that there is a list of structure that says we got to do this, and we have to do this, and we have to do this every year. And what are those things?
Okay, so to me, that would be a report on the preventative maintenance plan. What is the preventative maintenance plan?
Fine. I'm okay with that.
That's what I would call that. So get a review of the preventative maintenance plan that the district has in place.
But we're interested in the information on what we're physically doing. We're not looking, or we also...
But that is what that's what we're doing to keep our equipment.
Yeah, but I mean, I had, Doug always says, I've got this plan, I've got this always procrastinating plan that says, well, I just replaced the furnace, it's covered for the next 3 years under warranty, so I don't have to worry till year 4 before I put some money aside to anticipate a failure,
Well, that's a plan.
It's a plan.
I mean, do we do that in addition? And is there an interaction or a relationship in some ways to the building condition survey and gathering the data that might point to that, You look at the...
Well, there's 3 processes and structures. One is the building condition survey. The second is the DRIP plan, which includes the meeting with the building principals. The other is they do it through budget building. So as the director of facilities goes into budget season, and so especially with equipment, they definitely perseverate over, the aging condition over this piece of equipment versus another, and that's when they do their prioritization and they submit a budget that says, you know what, I need a floor polisher, I need a lawnmower, and I needed this. And they provide the rationale that this is this old, this old, this old. So with things like equipment, it's done through the budgeting process. The preventative maintenance, I think there are things that we do. Do we change the filters, on an annual basis? Do we do that? So I think it sounds as if we landed on something broad enough that we can get...
How about this? We receive a comprehensive presentation that details a preventative maintenance plan. That includes a snapshot of facility issues of the greatest concern. That includes the last line that he wanted to add.
Seems doable. I think that's more of what you're looking for.
Yeah, and if and only good can come out of whatever presentation is made, if it begs more questions or a different level of detail or a greater understanding, it'll help refine moving forward for a subsequent goal.
And what I would suggest is we start seeing the journals, that perhaps that may help us to ask for that report in March to include additional items. There may be things that are brought up in the journal entries that may spur further discussion.
Okay,
Hate to-
we're done? Yes.
No, can I just move on to number 4?
Yes.
Is number 4 premature
Yes.
for this year?
That's what I was wondering myself. Or do we gather information so we have a baseline to know when it's all done, what it does look like?
Well, it's not what this says. It says receive a review of capital bond update to heating controls at FDR, but that's not going to begin until the work begins.
No.
I know, I think,
No, we already did the controls.
The $1.1 million
Yeah, we
project.
did the controls.
Yeah.
This is saying, what benefit have we accrued from the capital project that updated the heating controls at FDR?
So that part of it was already done? So this isn't the whole heating system?
No,
This is just the control. Think of it, this is the thermostats.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood
They
the
split
question
up the
then.
classrooms so we could get individual control of individual classrooms.
Okay.
Yeah, this was the 1.1 million project we did that was finished
That's fine.
last year, yeah.
it
I know,
was-
they all blend together.
It was at more than FDR. It was a district-wide project.
It was district-wide, yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
do we
then
want to do district-wide?
I think you would want to see, well,
Or we want to do Haviland and FDR?
Wouldn't 4 be included in 1?
Yes.
Certainly for bullet number
Can you
2
go up
it
to
should
1?
be.
oh, sorry.
Including
Well, one
reference
thing
to
about,
capital
you know,
projects.
the number 1, it says, include a reference to capital projects that have enhanced energy use and how they correlate to energy consumption. That was one, yeah, I did mention that in 4. But the other side of the coin was there were other reasons for doing it, like, you know, we've got 3 classrooms over at the far end that are too damn hot to be in, and we got 2 classrooms at the opposite end that are too cold to be in, you know, which part of the control change was to try and balance this across all the classrooms. And the only way I thought of monitoring that is, you know, if there are continuing to be maintenance requests to say, you know, my classroom's still too hot, my classroom's still too cold. If they're equal, you know, nobody's complaining about the temperature differentials, we're happy with the classroom temperatures, which the controls would adjust, then looking at the energy consumption would be more valid. You know, we're not wasting energy overheating other classrooms, we're not cutting energy that we need because we got some classrooms cold, but, you know, we balance the classrooms out, they're good. Now the energy consumption for the building should be more reasonably balanced in terms of the weather conditions we come up with. And that's why I threw the degree days in.
It may be difficult to give all the credit of any energy savings simply to the controls or not, because there's so many.
I'm not trying to give credit to
No,
it,
no,
I'm
I'm
just saying,
just-
have we noticed a change that might be related to the controls in
Right.
that period of time?
Right, and I agree that should be part of the energy education, because you're going to get a lump number of fuel oil savings or natural gas, whichever, for that building. And whether it's a result of cultural changes in the way that we're operating the building and people are, you know, living with lower temperatures,
weather
or
patterns.
whether it's better controls.
Weather.
We just, yeah, well, if you use degree days, you
Degree days, okay, yeah.
can
Right.
equal that out. But yeah, I agree. I think that we can look at that and give a little bit of credit for probably, and, you know, that the control system is doing a better job, and at the same time, our energy program is doing a better job.
So
I think-
you want to merge it with 1, or what are you talking?
I would
Just keep
just
it separate?
expect that it would be included.
Except for the point that Dan made, which I think is important, is are we really going in and making sure that those classes at FDR, because once you said it, it reminded me, are they really being addressed, and do we really have a better situation?
So I
Because we
think
really did have some severe things.
And that goes back to the first bullet. So I think for the first bullet of number 4 should stay as a separate item that really speaks to the space comfort of those
Yeah.
areas that have new controls, and have we appreciated, you know, come to appreciate, you know, and one measurement would be work orders. You know, are we seeing fewer work orders? Another might simply, you could look at things like attendance.
How many of the classrooms got coats on and how many don't?
Yeah, how many days did we have to relocate? Was there a need to relocate students for any days? I mean, those are the kinds of things that I think that we could we could look at and say, there's a value, that our investment in the controls has paid dividends.
So how are we looking at receiving this? Are we looking from the energy educator to give that?
No.
Or are we looking for F&O?
No. The energy educator, I think, would address the fuel consumption.
Then the
And I
second
think
bullet.
that.
So if I move the second
Yeah,
bullet
the second
up to number
bullet
one.
really becomes part of the energy educator's presentation. And the number 4 would stay with the first bullet being something we'd be looking for facilities to comment on.
I would like them to comment on it however they want to, whether it's a reduction in the work orders or just by speaking with the teachers in those rooms.
Yeah.
I just would like a comment. I would like somebody to be checking on that as well. I don't know how to do that either.
As a goal, we want it to be measurable.
Okay.
Ideally, we want something that you can validate. So, and quantify. So it could be work orders. It could be, like you say, the availability of the rooms, the less interruptions.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Yes. Are we keeping just FDR?
No, actually, I think that should be district. I would open that up to any building. I mean, particularly Haviland is where we had the biggest issues.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would say that anything that relates to the heating controls, the new heating controls.
Okay. So the 3 bullets and policy we're fine with?
I'm fine with the policy.
I stuck that in just so we talk about it.
Okay, technology. Received 2 reports on how new technology has been integrated into instructional practice, one in January, one in June. We're fine?
Yep.
Evaluate the success of integrating technology in the classrooms. How is technology being used for critical thinking, and how are we helping those who might struggle with this approach? How are we going to do that?
Up to the classrooms and see how many got the street light.
Good question.
Are you asking how?
How are we going to evaluate? How are we
going to measure that?
Yeah, what do we have to give something? What are we measuring it on?
So let's see. Evaluate the success of integrating technology in the classroom. How's the technology being used for critical thinking? I think, to me, that's just give me examples. Show me how technology is being used for critical thinking. Because I have to admit, I'm a little fuzzy when, I support the 4 Cs. I think it's a great thing, but I want to see more examples of how it's being used. I want to, I'm a hands-on thing, and critical thinking isn't necessarily a hands-on. It is, but it's a little too squishy for me. Yeah, that's a good term. So show me how we're doing it, how it's being used.
So we need to see a presentation again? Do we need to see a presentation?
I would like to me, a presentation is somebody getting up there and perhaps providing either some statistics, bullet points of what's being done, success stories, some testimonials, maybe a video showing some activity in the classroom of what's being done. I'm just looking for somebody to give me examples of the success of this. What are we really doing?
So we change it to receive presentation evaluating the success of integrating technology in the classroom?
Evaluating the success, I would think presentations on how it's being used. I would like some examples on how it's being used in the classroom, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And I think evaluation is evaluate the success, because maybe we're not being successful, maybe. And I think I like the last part of that is the struggling. So, do we have educators out there? We're buying a tremendous amount of technology.
Right.
And I've heard of another district where, there's a lot of technology being put in the classrooms, and it's been sitting there for a year and not being used. And I want to know about that. I want to know. So what do we need to do? Is it professional development? Is it just a matter that it doesn't matter how much we work with these educators, they're going to continue to do it the way they're doing it, then let's not
So-
kid ourselves, so.
Yeah,
No,
right,
it's gonna
so
be the educators that won't do it.
there's lots of ways to word that, because there's a lot going on in that number
Yep.
too, because you don't necessarily need technology to implement the critical thinking initiative. I think you really want to see both.
Right.
But, and how it's supported, so,
I guess the bottom line question I think everybody is saying is without being this crazy blunt about it, I guess, but how many teachers are using our technology and how many teachers aren't?
and what systems do we have for supporting them?
And
Yeah.
what can we do to help the teachers that aren't using it, because we have to identify why they're not using it and what could be the problem is why it's not being used more in the classrooms, right?
Missed opportunities, why?
And I think this is the right time to do it. The technology's been around now for a year. And, now maybe just a simple walkthrough classroom by classroom saying, how is it working, is it functional? Gather some information on how often do you have to get somebody in to fix it and stuff like that. But at the same time say, well, how often are you using it during a day? And, what do the students use it for?
How often are observations done?
So, Rick, do you want to come up and share your thoughts on this?
You shook your head yes to once too many.
And actually, in case people didn't hear it, Carl was asking about observations, and one of the things that is part of the teacher observation is technology use in the classroom. It's part of the AP, our evaluation tool, right? Yeah.
There's a few items in the rubrics that relate directly
Yeah.
to technology and how they're using it.
Yep.
Yeah. So, it is, number 2 is rather daunting, because evaluating the success can be a little subjective. What I immediately thought about is when I took over the job a few years ago, the technology committee was talking about the SAMR model, S-A-M-R. And it's really, I have to write it down every time because acronyms.
Substitute, augment, revolutionize?
Modification. And redefinition.
Redefinition. I
So
like revolutionize.
substitution is just, instead of having kids write the report, they type the report. It's a low level of technology integration. All the way up to redefinition where the kids have to do a report, but instead of writing one, they do a multimedia presentation, something they couldn't have done with paper and pencil. The technology actually makes it incredibly different and new and unique. So if we were to look at some of the stuff that's out there in relation to that SAMR model, it might be a way of evaluating the success, because we want to see people go towards that higher level. That was one thing I thought about. Numbers, I can provide you numbers. I was actually in the room earlier, and Jeff and I were talking a little bit about this. How do we measure this? So I went to our different reporting applications, Google Admin Console, and also GoGuardian, and I pulled numbers off of that for the last 6 months. So we can actually look at growth, how much are documents being used, how much are documents being shared, how long are the documents, things like that. So there's a number of numbers I can throw at you. I think the success part is a troubling part of that one, because is it enough that the TV's on? Is that success? Or is it how that TV is being used? So I'm struggling with the success piece. I can give you all sorts of number about what the technology is being used for. Success is a troubling word for me, because I'm not sure how to quantify success.
Well, I'd be willing to take success out and say evaluate the integration of technology in classrooms.
That we can definitely talk about.
Because success means, to me, you could say that I'm evaluating success and tell you only of the success stories and miss the downside.
We had that.
Yeah.
We had
and
that.
that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for identifying those opportunities, which kind of gets into the struggle part.
Yeah.
Well, and part of the, part of the update on the how new technology is being used, I know Rick always incorporates the data on how many PD sessions, how many people have attended, the coaching sessions, because we do have the tech integrators, and he's prepared very detailed reports on how the tech integrators are being used, how many people sign up for their services, whether it's one-to-one. We log everything that those tech integrators do to help teachers. So I think that would all be part of that. I think the underlying elephant in the room, if you will, is, where's it not being used and how do we address it? Is that accurate?
And does it exist?
Yeah.
And does it exist?
And does it exist, and what can we do? Because I'm sure we must have educators, right, that are unfamiliar with the technology or not really sure how to.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's a bell curve. I mean, there's always gonna be-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's not about pointing the finger and saying, why aren't you using this?
People are afraid to set goals like that.
I'm more involved. I'm more interested in identifying them and saying, how can we help? What can we do?
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, absolutely.
And some of it is very fluid, but I think we can piece something together, and I think we can put a goal together. What are the support structures, and how are we monitoring when someone is, it's not even reluctant anymore. It's not really an option. I mean, you can't have the kid come into the classroom with a Chromebook and say, you're not allowed to touch it in my class. I mean, I think that's...
I don't think we're there.
I don't think we're there, no, I think we're beyond that, but I think that's what you're trying to get at.
Is there a way to measure the accomplishments of students in classrooms that use technology a great deal as opposed to the ones that don't?
You need a research company to come in and do a whole...
Well, what I'm saying is,
It'd be an
you're going to have people
interesting
say, I've always done this, and my students have always done well, and you can't argue with that. I mean,
it would literally...
You want to be able to say, this is the value add you get by using technology.
Having written a dissertation, that is a dissertation.
Well, you won't get full participation, so you can do that. You can say, this is why you should use it.
Your 3 different groups, you need to identify them, you need to, triage the...
Yeah.
And that's not a one-year thing. That's but sooner or later, we should be able to at least approximately know how effective it is and what is it successful,
Yeah. The problem is the further we move into technology, the more it's not an add-on anymore. It's not an add-on for our lives. It's just fluid. It's so some of the old models of looking at how do we measure whether or not technology is being used or is effective look very, very different today. I mean, I see what you're getting at, and I think we can get a lot. I think we can provide a lot of insight and.
I'm reflecting back on some of the professional development that I've had earlier this year, and one of the things that was presented was that you can take, when you're looking at technology users, there's three groups. One is those who will take technology, embrace it, and run with it. Those in the middle who will work along with it, struggle with it, tend to want to go back to the old way, but know that they've got to work forward with it. And then you've got another group that are always going to resist it. Let's not put, and as much as I want, like the idea of like helping people that are struggling, to me the strugglers are the ones in the middle. If you're not struggling and you're not using it, you're in the group that's just not, it's not working. And quite frankly, I don't want to spend a lot of time there. I want to spend my time supporting those who are embracing it and running with it, and those who are still working, and still showing that they're struggling and wanting to work with it. Because those I have an opportunity to move them into the embrace and running with it. So that's part of what I'd really be looking for, is just what are we doing with those who are taking it and running with it?
Let's translate that to students. Do you have the same attitude on students? The ones that are struggling, forget them.
No, I don't.
We only want to worry about these. I mean, it's the same thing.
But I have an opportunity with students, and I have a commitment to students. My commitment is to make sure that they get the best education they possibly can, be the best rounded student they possibly can.
Right.
And
some will refuse to do that. Some will refuse.
Yeah, but we're still early in the inclusion of technology into the classrooms, and let's start getting as much going with it.
But you're not
concentrate
just
on that.
technology.
No.
You're referring
Yes,
to...
I am.
So the point is, those students, no, I look at students totally different. I don't divide students
Okay.
by that group.
Okay,
If anything, I may reverse my effort.
okay. I would hope you would.
But my point is that I'm looking at, I guess, when I'm looking at the integration of technology in the classroom, that's led by the instructor. I'm not evaluating the students. I am looking at how the student is using it, but that's led by the instructor. If it's not fostered, if it's not promoted by the instructor, the student is not likely to be doing it, and that's not the instructor, or that's not the student's fault.
And that's not to say if the instructor didn't use the technology, they weren't teaching their student, and their student wasn't learning.
Well, yeah, there's that too. I mean,
So just want to make sure that
outstanding instructor who, for whatever reasons, doesn't use technology, and their students are successful. So,
But are they?
I mean,
Yeah.
They're successful in light of the teacher and what he's teaching and how they show up on results. But in the future, those people step into the new world outside, and suddenly
do you think
they're
any student,
they don't know how to
any
handle
student
the
by the
tools
time
that
they
are
get
available
to
that
middle school
the employer's ready to use?
doesn't know how to use a computer?
You know, it's...
Of course they do.
Yeah, I think we're kind of digressing here, and it's a very philosophical question of where
And the giants are playing.
adults and students are with technology, you know. We're getting there faster than, you know, we think. I don't think we need to look at it in terms, in the very concrete, using, not using anymore, because pretty much in one way or another, all the teachers and all the students are using it on some sort of a continuum, and there's an awful lot more flexibility with letting students lead the way. I mean, you know, this more and more, whether you're a parent or an educator, there's no problem in saying, you know, hey, come help me with this. You know, I was presenting to the high school PTA and, you know, using the interactive whiteboard. I've never been trained, but I'm just like, okay, is this a touch thing? I'm touching it, and we got into a standstill, and so actually it was Sarah Trainer came up, and we were both troubleshooting how to get the volume and pushing, so we finally figured it out. So I think we can look at it differently. I think we can hone this, put it into a goal, but I don't think we need to you know, measure specifically who's using, who's not using. That is part of the teacher evaluation system. There are multiple ways where we evaluate whether or not they're using the technology. But I think you have enough there with how is it being integrated, and how do we know, you know.
So we're going to come back on this because we're almost hitting 9 o'clock, so we'll come back and hit this one last section on the next meeting.
Sure.
Come back. Also, I'd kind of like you to think of number 3. I mean, student parents view. When we come back, think about what do you mean by that one? Does that mean a survey? What does that mean? So think about that. And, well, Rick's already here, so number 4 we can take off.
Done.
Okay.
Basically, we can't do it, right?
So let's move on. Okay. Consent agenda, 10.1 through 11. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dan. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Just a quick question, Jeff. On 10.1, we're asking to approve 10.1, but 10.1 is not one of the items we're approving, right? We're asking for a motion to approve 10.2 through 10.11.
You're correct. Yes,
I've looked at it
Okay.
several times, and it keeps causing an itch in my back, and I kept saying, all right, someday I'll think about just asking the question.
But isn't
10-1.
the motion to approve the other?
Yes, but I said 10-1 through 10-11. I should have said, can I have a motion for
Well, that's what the
10.1?
motion says, approve 10-1 through 10-11.
Sorry, you're approving
Yeah.
the
Who
motion?
Yeah.
Sitting on the side.
Okay.
Huh?
Okay, can I have a new business? 11.1, special education placements.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I've reviewed the pack and recommend its adoption as presented.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Can I have a motion for 11.2? Acknowledge receipt and acceptance of the external audit.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Can I have a motion for 11.3, reauthorization of the petty cash account?
So moved.
Second.
Who will, please? Thank you.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Can I have a motion for 11.4, designation,
No, that's the one you removed.
that's the one I removed. Well, it is now in the new one, it's 11.4. Designation revision of appointments.
There's nothing there.
Nothing on yours?
Move it. So moved.
Mine's been updated.
So moved.
Moved.
I don't get no time.
When did this get changed?
I've got it, so.
I don't know what's
It's been
written.
here all the time. I hear this stuff. It's been in there.
I have nothing on my screen that says there's something I could look at. This is what I'm.
Are you
approving.
looking under content?
I got it.
Content?
think
Under
you have to-
content?
Barry has a new machine, of course, he has it on there.
Are you on 11? Go to 10.
11.4.
Are we on 11?
Yeah, 11.4.
On my screen, I don't know, maybe got loaded late, earlier or what, but there's no document next to it.
I reloaded and it caught up to what it should be. Like I refreshed my screen.
Refresh, maybe?
Got a little funds back there.
Hit your refresh.
Yeah, I've got fun times.
You haven't got this?
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
I gotta go all the way back to.
Join the meeting.
I mean, this is all about Elliot, who cares? I mean, you know, come on. Oh, he's still here. Oh, he left.
And then click on 11.4.
Oh, while you're looking, I'll check the
Alright.
Giant score.
Don't you dare. If you
Okay.
check it, don't tell me.
Do we have a motion? We had a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We have a motion for 11.5, vendor agreement, Anderson Counseling.
So move. Second. Get going here.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, can I have a motion for 11.6, vendor agreement, Generation Ready?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Can I have a motion for 11.7, vendor agreement, Abbott?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. 11.8, Abilities First, agreement for special education services for 2018-2019.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Have a motion for 11.9, Abilities First, agreement for special education services
17, 18?
Yeah,
17, 18?
I know. So
I
at
think we need
the,
to have a motion,
Can I have a-
second, and then
Oh, sorry.
discussion.
Yeah. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Linda, could you?
Sure. So at the end of last school year, we had to contract with Abilities First for nursing services for a specific student, and we just didn't get the, any contract at that time. I think it was like an emergency type situation. And now, when it was noticed that the invoices weren't paid, we asked for the contract just so we could have everything in order. So the amount that's listed under admin content is the actual amount from the invoices.
And that's paid out of last year's budget?
No, it'll be paid from this year's budget because it wasn't included last year.
Was it budgeted in this year's budget?
Yeah, there's funds there.
It's a general amount for things like this that happen.
Okay.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, at this time, can we have a motion to open public participation?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Is anybody who would like to address the board?
This could be a new first.
Since there's no one interested in addressing the board, public participation is now closed. Is there any other matters deemed necessary before the board? Seeing none, there is no need for a second executive session. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.
Woo-hoo.